just had a slip and fall over in Celebration, settled for 1.3 million.
It's insane.
And it was a twisted ankle, but it had some sort of compartment syndrome piece to it or
What
whatever
was this
on
person,
the
like a
stairs.
dancer?
Well, I was like, did you fall into a wood chipper? I say that all the time. I'm like, I don't understand how you could get that injured.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today for Policy Party, where we bring you insightful insurance information in interesting little bits. I'm Negar Sharifi, and he's Phil Masi. Up next in today's episode is slip and fall prevention. I just taught a class last week to the local CAI chapter, and it got a lot of interest, and it was all on how to reduce liability claims for an association. So I'm with Phil, and I want to get his, advice on what associations can do to limit their exposures to general liability claims. Okay, Phil, what do you find to be the number one risk exposure for associations as it relates to liability?
There's no question. It's trip and fall.
Trip and
Trip and
fall.
fall, slip and fall. I mean, people falling down. And, again, if you go back to when we were first doing this many moons ago, young as we may look, if someone would slip and fall, and if it's claim settled for 10 grand, we'd be like, $10,000. That's crazy.
How much did you pay?
Yeah. I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, we just had one, just had a slip and fall over in Celebration, settled for 1.3 million.
It's insane.
And it was a twisted ankle, but it had some sort of compartment syndrome piece to it or
What
whatever
was this
on
person,
the
like a
stairs.
dancer?
Well, I was like, did you fall into a wood chipper? I say that all the time. I'm like, I don't understand how you could get that injured. But yeah, 1.3 million. We've had multiple over 1 million on slip and falls, but definitely hundreds of thousands is pretty common these days.
Right.
And you got to remember, these liability policies for most of these condos are, 20 grand, 15 grand, 18 grand. And so you have a $500,000 loss. That's kind of, many years of premiums being kind of wiped away there. So definitely more of a serious issue than it used to be several years back because of medical inflation and 100 other reasons.
Right. So I agree. So the number one claim scenario we see on a general liability is slip, trip, and fall.
Yep.
So I figured let's walk those that are watching, our viewers, through ways to reduce those types of claims from occurring. So where's the first spot that most trip and falls happen? On property.
Yeah. So what I would say is a lot of people try to be reactive when things occur.
Uh-huh.
I think the boards need to be proactive. So what you're saying here about trying to lead them through this stuff. So if you're trying to be proactive to prevent this stuff before
Correct.
it happens.
Yes.
And so I always advise my clients to focus on the foot traffic, the biggest foot traffic areas in the community. So if you had a sidewalk in the back of the community no one ever walks on that had some issues, but I would be focusing on, all right, the community mailbox. Everyone's walking to that mailbox to pick up their mail. Is the area around that mailbox good? Is the walkways, to and from the pool area and the amenities good? Staircases, huge issue. I mean, like a stair is failing and you falling from a height, and tumbling down. Those are always the best places to start because it's the areas of the most foot traffic is where you're going to see the most slip and falls.
Now, are there regulations regarding, sidewalks and nature? Things are going to happen. There's only so much you can do, but are there regulations about like safety regulations around sidewalks and like deviations in sidewalks?
So what they typically say is if there's more than a 1/4 inch deviation between the height, so if you're at two sidewalks and one is just a 1/4 inch higher than the other, once it reaches a 1/4 inch, you have liability on the association's part. You're supposed to keep that within a 1/4 inch, which is not much. 1/4 inch is small. So what, again, I advise is you probably have areas that are much worse. They're an inch, they're an inch and a half. They're crazy differences. The roots have grown up and blown up the sidewalks. Handle those first. I mean, get your worst areas as quick as possible. But eventually, in a perfect world, you really don't want anything with more than a 1/4 inch because that's where liability starts.
So what should they do about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to inspect, again, starting with the high foot traffic areas, you have to inspect these areas multiple times a year. It can't be once a year. It's got to be once every 2 months or once a month, depending on how you go through it. And document it. And there are services now, they'll drive segways. They have levels on the segways. They do all kinds of things to do this in a more efficient way for big communities. So there are companies out there that you could call that'll do this stuff. But I just think from the association's perspective, you've got to look at where your worst trip and falls could potentially happen and fix them. One of the things you can do when you notice that it's an issue, you can mark the area off with like caution tape and cones. I know people don't love the sight of that,
Right.
but that helps prevent people from walking on it. And if someone does walk on it, you're like, well, you went through the caution tape.
Right. Or at least until they can get someone out there to shave down the sidewalk.
And then one of the big things is people will spray like the highlighted orange, spray paint on the area, which I actually don't mind. I think spray painting that on an area so it's really bright, people know there's an issue there, is a good temporary solution. The problem is kind of twofold with that. One, if someone's walking at night, they're not going to see it and they're going to fall in that area. So that totally eliminates slip and falls at night. You can't really use that paint as leverage. And then the other thing is it's Florida. It rains, there's sun. If you don't re-spray paint that like every week, I mean, it starts to fade. And kind of the worst thing that can happen is someone tripping and falling on an area that is clearly been marked, but it was marked months ago and wasn't really helpful to the person that day to stop them from falling. But now the association has acknowledged they've known about this issue and did nothing but spray it once. I mean, you had how many months to fix this? Yeah. So you got to think when you're in court or when you're dealing with the attorneys or Morgan & Morgans of the world and they're going after the association, those plaintiff counsel, that's the first thing they're going to do. Like, how much would it cost to fix this? Oh, only $500? Or how long does it take? Oh, 2 weeks. This thing's been messed up for 6 months. And then my client falls and they've got all these damages. So it's just like the Poolgate scenario when Poolgate breaks the clip for it and it costs $12 for the part and someone doesn't fix it for months on end. And then a child gets in the, and we've seen that. Like those are hard. It just makes those claims so much worse.
Okay. So the number one risk is the trip and fall on sidewalks. And Phil has explained that a good preventive measure is to go ahead and have let's say quarterly, walk the property quarterly, and maybe have a service come out to shave down the sidewalks. The next thing that I noticed, the other big ones for me, is loose pavers, particularly by the pool deck.
Yep.
Or walking up to the clubhouse. Now, I wear high heels.
I know.
Oh, yeah. I'm 4'11". I have to wear high heels. So I wear high heels and I will go to board meetings and I've had where my heels get stuck on them. Very much loose pavers, very obvious. So that's another one. Several claims that I get from my communities are stairs. So some of the stair treads for the older communities built in the 80s are made out of wood. And they start to splinter and warp.
Yep.
I'm sure you've seen those.
I mean, the stairs are the worst because when the stairs or the concrete starts to come apart and chip and you miss a stair or, again, a heel gets caught in it or something like that, those are the worst because, I mean, you fall from a height. Those can be the worst claims.
Yeah, those are big.
We've also seen rotted wood. So whether it's at a pool deck that's made of wood or any type of walkways or your other thing people don't think about is their piers or docks or something they may have or a viewing area. That wood rots out. Someone's foot goes through it. They get cut, nails, whatever.
Oh, I had someone go through a balcony. That's for a different day. But yes, rotted wood.
Yeah. I mean, the balconies, falling off a balcony is not useful either. So yeah, all those things.
That's not good for the loss run report.
And then you want to make sure that stuff is slip resistant too. So if you have anything grades that are like this, that you're walking down, you want to make sure it's got the slip resistant paint to the right grit.
Yeah.
Same thing with the stairs when you're walking. Because you understand a lot of our associations are open to the elements. They're outdoor hallways. They're outdoor staircases. So rain's going to blow in them.
Yeah, and they
puddle. They're going to get wet. Yeah. So it's figuring that out. Also making sure you're keeping up with pressure washing, looking out for the mildew and algae buildup. We see that in the parking lots. We see that in the overspray from sprinklers. You got to be walking these communities to know when you hit those spots because they're pretty easy to get rid of, but you got to get on top of it because if someone slips in that stuff, there's going to be claims.
And one last thing, and I gave it as an example when I spoke last week that people were a little surprised about, is I told them the story, and I've told you about my property in Tampa where there was a worn out path going from a sidewalk to the pool gate. And people were cutting through. And so it was a worn out path. And in the middle of that worn out path was an exposed large tree root. And an elderly woman fell and broke a hip. And that ended up becoming a huge claim. And the carrier paid. And they paid because it was a known worn path that the association could visibly see, that they could tell people were cutting through and didn't do anything to prevent the fall.
Well, I think people don't understand. A lot of times, again, what plaintiff attorneys will be able to show is maintenance. Your own people are probably using that path. I mean, when you have a worn path like that, that's obvious, you're basically condoning the use of it unless you knock that path out. You get grass over it again. You put signage up not to use it. But if you don't do that and everyone's knowing they're taking that path, the expectation is that path is going to be safe for them to do. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They think, well, they're out in they tripped over a root in the middle of the field. Normally that wouldn't be covered, but it's not really the middle of a field. It's on a path that is really association endorsed because the association has not removed it. They've not stopped people from using it. And associations own people a lot of times will use it, right? So it's hard to get around that. But yeah, I mean, there's other stuff. So you look at like even other parts of landscaping that are issues. I mean, making sure your trees are trimmed correctly. You don't have dead branches or dead trees hanging around. We've got a lot of claims that have come in from tree branches falling on people or cars. And it's one thing, again, you risk in Florida parking under a car. We've talked about that in prior classes. But if that tree is dead, I mean, and that limb is dead and it just kind of falls off and it's obvious that tree was dead, that's going to be problematic, especially if it hits somebody and causes bodily injury. So, some things to think about.
Sprinkler heads.
Again, making sure you have a contract with your sprinkler company, that the sprinkler company who's doing the irrigation repairs is doing them correctly, not leaving like unmarked holes just sitting around there. Because again, that could be the irrigation company's liability in the event that it's done. So that's a whole nother class on vendor risk transfer, but just another thing to think about. And pools, just make sure you're all over your pool, because that's like the worst claims we see are going to be partial drownings, like injuries to the pool. You really want to make sure those pool gates are self-closing and latching, that all the, when you look at the posts that are in a gate, we had this video where the post, the kids knew they could slide the post out and all kind of run in there. I think a lot of people have seen that video. Make sure those posts are in place and no one can just sneak in.
Particularly before summer break.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're coming up to pool season right now. So making sure your pool's in good condition, make sure the rules for the pool and like the address of it, if somebody need to call 911, the phone numbers, all that stuff that needs to be there. Like that stuff gets warped by the sun or faded by the sun. Make sure your signage is good so that there is an emergency, people know what to do, and that all your life-saving equipment that's at the pool is functioning and working. A lot of people don't check that stuff, and the pool is the number one thing. And a lot of times it's not the association's fault. Most of this stuff, I would tell you, 75% of the stuff we see come in is not really, in my mind, negligence on the association. There's all these extenuating circumstances, right? The person was significantly overweight or wearing bad shoes or walking 11 dogs or whatever the deal is, right? And then something happens, but when there's these issues are open or a problem, they can become a big deal. One other thing, I keep saying one other thing, but this is important. Security cameras. Can't endorse security cameras.
And we have a whole class on that.
We do, but can't support that enough. I mean, a camera will tell the truth in a scenario, whereas when you're just my word versus your word, right? And you don't have witnesses and it's just that person who fell and they're injured. We had one the other day downtown. Lady said she fell down the stairs going to the parking lot. So went ahead and pulled the video up from the time frame. She didn't know there was a camera. Camera has her in the parking lot looking like she's looking up at the sun, like just standing there. I don't know if she was trying to sneeze or she was just like on drugs. I don't know. Praying, I don't know. But she just face plants in the parking lot. It wasn't like she did anything. She fell. So yeah, of course she was messed up, but she just went boom. There was the stairs, she was down for minutes before that happened. So she was lying, filling out the report saying she fell on the stairs. This is the kind of stuff that probably happens more often than you think.
Right, but there's no video.
Nobody wants to admit that they did it. We had another one in Altamont where the lady had a femur fracture, really bad claim, really bad scenario. But when you looked at the video, she said she had tripped over rebar sticking out of the parking spot. And there was rebar out of the parking spot right where she fell. That would have been a big claim. Turned out, though, that she actually walked between the parking spaces and tripped on her own flip-flop and fell. She was overweight. Again, it was a scenario where it was somebody that was not sure on their feet, walked off the curb and then tripped and fell on her own. But again, it was easy to blame the rebar that was there. And had there not been video,
probably would have paid out quite a bit.
I had one of my hotel clients. Lady said she fell through a chair. And the video shows that they were twerking on the chair and broke through it and then actually sat in it for another 2 hours with it broken. I mean, so it's like these videos will show that usually you can get these cases dismissed, motion of summary judgment, all these other things. So having good video is huge. It definitely solves some of these problems.
And you can go to our YouTube page. We have a whole podcast episode just on the importance of videos. Well, thank you, Mr. Phil Masi, for dropping some slip, trip, and fall knowledge on us.
I better. 10 of them a week.
I'm Negar Sharifi, and this is Policy Party.